Our board host today is Greg Jackson, member of the Board of Governors and Public Relations Director for the Metropolitan Group. He will have the privilege of asking the first question of Dr. Ramaley. Following Greg's question, we will proceed with questions from City Club members in the audience, and if you will, begin to collect behind the microphone as Greg is speaking. And please do limit your questions to 30 seconds or less, and we do ask for questions from City Club members only. And now, it is truly a privilege for me to introduce Dr. Judith Ramaley. Dr. Ramaley came to Portland State as president in August of 1990. She is a well-published neuroendocrinologist who continues to teach at least one course a year at Portland State University. That course, I might tell you, is bioethics. And Dr. Ramaley, as you know, is going to the University of Vermont, where she will also have responsibility for the medical school. And it's thrilling to me as a physician to know that she will be in a position to bridge both the liberal arts as well as medical education, almost a unique position in the United States. She, as you know, during her time at Portland State, was able to put Portland State in the center of the map of American urban universities. Before coming to Portland, Judith held academic and important administrative leadership positions in Indiana, Nebraska, Kansas, and New York. She is a Swarthmore graduate and has a PhD from UCLA. Dr. Ramaley is especially interested and expert in the reform of higher education and in educational access and cooperation. She has led and been part of national networks and consortia which are devoted to educational revision. These have included the chairmanship of the Academic Affairs Council of the National Association of State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges, and the chair of the Commission on Women in Higher Education of the American Council on Education. Judith's defense of higher education in Oregon, and particularly of special programs important to urban universities such as Portland State, have been successful and have often made front-page news. How sad for Portland and for Oregon, and how fortunate for Vermont that she has indeed recently been appointed president of the University of Vermont. Judith is a mother and a grandmother. Her superb contralto singing voice has enlivened the Portland music scene. Today, she brings that voice, somewhat altered by a recent bout with pneumonia, she brings that voice to bear, and she will speak or sing as she wishes as she addresses us on the subject of how we might set a new course for higher education. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Judith Ramaley.
Thank you, friend. Best I could do under the circumstances. When I walked in the room today, I walked by a table when the little signs were still up that said reserved PSU alumni, and I'm still laughing because I've never met a reserved PSU alumni. And in a way, that's the theme I want to talk about today. I want to talk to you about the need for significant change in our public institutions, particularly higher education, about the benefits we can expect when we do change them, and as you would expect, as someone who's devoted her life and imagination and energy to a particular institution, Portland State, the need to sustain the momentum that we have established there, an institution which now, both nationally and internationally, is recognized as a leader in the field of transforming institutions to achieve societal purpose. On my wall at home, I have recently pinned up a quotation from a woman named Emily Green Balch, who was a Quaker who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1946, but because of the state of the world did not actually receive it until 1948. And she gave a prescription for world peace, which she called Toward Human Unity and Beyond Nationalism. She said, "We are not asked to subscribe to any utopia or to believe in a perfect world just around the corner. We're asked to be patient with necessarily slow and groping advance in the road forward, and to be ready for each step ahead as it becomes practicable. We are asked to equip ourselves with courage, with hope, with readiness for hard work, and to cherish large and generous ideals." And that's the theme I want to talk about, large and generous ideals, not just unreserved PSU faculty and staff and alumni. My remarks today will attempt to describe to you the pathway of change that Portland State has taken over a number of years, but I will reflect particularly on the last 7 when I've been privileged to be part of it. And to tell you the story of a group of people who've been learning through our experience together at our university and our community some very important things that I believe we all must understand and learn together. How to think about the good of the whole, how to exercise responsibility for others, how to deal with conflicting interests, how to express our own opinions clearly and ethically while respecting those of others, how to work together to accomplish what we could not achieve on our own, and how to act in a principled way. Matthew Sandel recently wrote in the New York Times, quote, "Above all, the institutions of civil society draw us out of our private, self-interested concerns and get us in the habit of attending to the common good." And that's what we're trying to do at Portland State, is to create an institution like that, one that draws us out of ourselves, helps us attend to the public good, but most importantly, equips us as faculty, staff, students, alumni, community participants to act on behalf of larger and generous goals. Now, this may sound a bit grand, but I want to assure you it isn't, but it is revolutionary, because we are creating an institution that is not self-contained, it is not self-centered, it is focused on the good of everyone in this room, everyone in the audience who may be hearing this presentation, and people that none of us have met who are being affected by what we're doing. All around us, we hear the call for change. Recently, a former Secretary of Education, William Sullivan, asked whether higher ed has the ability and the will to respond through leadership, institutional design, teaching, and research to create a new form of intellectual life for the public good. And he echoed a growing expectation that universities and colleges will have to interpret their mission and their social responsibilities in the light of a new era. I'm privileged to sit on a group called the Kellogg Commission for the Future of State and Land-Grant Universities. Just came back from a meeting of theirs 2 days ago in Washington, where I have been hearing how the nation's research universities are responding to this call to engage in public activity, to become engaged campuses. What does it mean to act that way, however? On a daily basis, how do you know an engaged institution from one that is not? What does institutional integrity and a concern for the public interest require of us? Stephen Carter, in his recent book on integrity, which Marvin Kaiser, the Dean of Arts and Sciences at PSU, put in my hands a few weeks ago and opened up an entire new way of thinking as a result, characterizes integrity this way. Integrity means to have the courage of one's convictions. And the question, of course, is how can we move our institutions and our lives closer to achieving integrity? In the past 7 years, Portland State has designed a new curriculum. It has reinterpreted the concept, the core concept of the academy, scholarship. It has changed its way of working in collaboration with other educational institutions and organizations in the region. And we've done this to promote the habits, skills, and quality of character that underlie our understanding of democracy, and to cultivate within the community, and most importantly within ourselves, the capacities that will let us all work together so that we can indeed address the remarkable changes that are occurring in our social fabric, our economic fabric, and in our relationships with each other. We don't have to look very far to find good quotations from people who are worried about our loss of trust and sense of community, and are concerned that the institutions we design no longer are really ours. David Matthews, the president of the Kettering Foundation, expresses this concern very clearly. He claims, with a great deal of good evidence to back him up, that the public has become disenchanted with professional experts and with most of our systems, economic, healthcare, judicial, educational. He says that we don't feel we have control over these systems anymore. We aren't even sure that the professionals in charge of them have control over them, but we are quite sure that they are not acting in our interests. Matthews goes on to diagnose the loss of confidence and the gap between the general public and the experts. What he says is, what people don't like about professionals are the assumptions about the public, the role the public plays, the abilities of the public. And professionals tend to reduce a sovereign public to patients, supplicants, clients, consumers, audience, and students. According to Matthews, it's time to rewrite the compact that experts struck with society a long time ago and realize that we all must learn together, and that the nature of expertise is changing, and that what we must all do is recognize that together we must, through integrity and through an appreciation for each other, recognize that there are no experts anymore. We have to align our practices with the processes that create a public, and we must change. So what process creates a public? I believe it's making choices together and learning together. From the point of view of an educator, there's no better place to start this joint deliberation and shared responsibility and action than through participation in the scholarly work of an engaged institution that is deeply based in the community it serves. Now, this is not a traditional view. For many years, universities have defined their task to be the discovery and transmission of knowledge. But this approach leads to what one PSU faculty member, Doug Robertson, has called simple learning, by which he means an ability to elaborate what you know already and stuff new things into it. But you yourself do not change. Your view of the world does not change. In such learning, the learner's basic perspective is untested and unchanged, and no public is created, and no capacity to be in the public is created. What we want instead is a deeper learning that helps us adapt to rapid changing social and economic conditions and can help us rebuild the community trust that we all so deeply desire. The change agenda at PSU reflects that desire by rebuilding connections between the public and its institutions, while at the same time providing our learners, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and others, with the kind of educational experience they need to be successful. It's our belief that to respond to these concerns, we need new ways of thinking, we need new approaches to learning that will be better for our students, that will enhance the ability of our communities to address their concerns, and that will help to build the trust and sense of common purpose that an organization like the City Club has sought to achieve for many years. In such a challenging time, we need a deeper, more transformative learning that makes us examine our assumptions, our habits, our preformed explanation of reality, and to change them in constructive ways through scholarly work. Scholarship that wakes us up and makes us explore our mental models and our own roles in creating the world that we are complaining about. Peter Senge captured this in his idea of a learning organization, and Dee Hock, who helped build Visa to an extraordinary extent, has set himself the task of describing how organizations could be different. He even had to coin a new word. He couldn't find one in the vocabulary. He calls them chaotic, for chaos and order, which is a little too much for me, so I will discard the thought. We believe that nothing more powerfully opens up the possibility of genuine transformative learning than community involvement, where learner and teacher meet and both are affected, to quote Doug Robertson. What stimulates mutual discovery and learning is what John Dewey calls inquiry or inquiry. I don't know if you like almonds or almonds, so you can have inquiry or inquiry, where thought and action are intertwined. Although this can, in fact, occur anywhere, and does, the realities of daily experience and the challenge that comes from direct work in community with fellow faculty, students, and community participants offers a rich array of challenges that tend to move people to a thoughtful reconsideration of very long-held assumptions. And it is a powerful stimulant for transformative learning. Portland State has embraced community-based scholarship in its curriculum and its research programs as the primary means to achieve our mission, which is to become a socially engaged campus and a place where learning occurs. We're guided in our activities by our commitment to, as our mission says, enhance the intellectual, social, cultural, and economic qualities of urban life. And to do this, we are becoming a key intellectual resource to the community. And through our interactions, we're learning how to promote scholarship in the public interest and how to bridge the gap between experts and the general public so that the new knowledge that we need can be discovered together through learning together and applied in close working relationships with members of our community. David Matthews, I'll quote again, argues the relationship between our public schools and our communities are in need of repair, but it should start in the community and work back toward the school. And that is, in fact, what we have been doing. The capacity for continuous adaptation is the mark not only of a healthy person, but of healthy institutions and a healthy society. It's our belief that the constant constructive and transforming interactions that are going on, supported by Portland State in its mode of developing and delivering its curriculum, in the way we do research, and in how we interact with the community, will create in the metropolitan area, in the state of Oregon, and through our connections with sister institutions globally throughout the world, a different way of thinking about life and life in common. Let me give you an idea of just how revolutionary this is. We're operating on the assumption that people want to hire, live next to, and work in a community with people who have integrity, can work together well, can adapt to change without losing their bearings, and can be socially responsible. And so we've reworked our entire undergraduate curriculum to promote these things: social responsibility, a respect for diversity, a habit of lifelong learning and reflection, the ability to think critically, and that doesn't mean to be critical, by the way. It means to know what's important to think about and distinguish it from what is not, and the ability to communicate and act in a thoughtful and principled way. And that philosophy underlies our entire approach to education from the freshman year through the senior year, which culminates in what we call a capstone. Let me tell you a couple of those capstones. Social Capital in Portland Neighborhoods, sponsored by Professor Lee Haggerty, involves work in Southeast Portland neighborhoods in conjunction with the development of the Inner Southeast Plan. The issues investigated include why people choose to participate in local neighborhood affairs, an issue I think many of us are concerned about. It involves a variety of methods, including observation, interviews, surveys, analysis. Another example, regional history, sponsored by Professor Bill Lang, which is on-site field work focused on the history of the Pacific Northwest, with particular emphasis on the Columbia River and the Columbia River Gorge in particular, where students look at how the presence of human beings has changed the nature of the land and how the nature of the land has changed us. In the fall, there'll be a lot of other interesting topics, accommodating roughly 200 teams that will support our senior year, that range from working with the Multnomah County Department of Community Corrections to working with software companies on software design, to some issues with the City of Portland in solid waste management, water stewardship, and so on. The issues by themselves clearly strike home. They are part of the large pattern of things that metropolitan area residents care about. But what matters particularly for my leaving messages with you today is how this creates capacity within the region. The majority of our students live and work here. They are citizens of this great metropolitan area. They will choose to remain in the Pacific Northwest, and they will have learned how to build community in the process of experiencing these capstone opportunities. The subjects are diverse, the participants vary, the expected results are different, but they all are community learning projects that have a set of core educational goals as their root. To provide an opportunity for students to apply expertise they've learned in their major to real issues and problems in the community. I'm sure most of you know there's nothing that promotes learning like the reality of its consequences. To enhance the ability of students to work in a context with others that requires collaboration with people different from themselves and educated in different ways. To encourage students to become actively involved in the community and to produce a product that brings a special kind of closure to the students' experience that will also be of value to the community participants who have generously sponsored the capstone. Although I've spent a lot of time talking about that particular part of our curriculum, I could have chosen a lot of other things. I'll be a bit like Caesar. I won't mention the following things. I won't mention how we are collaborating with the City of Portland to design and build a distinctive neighborhood in the University District, to create 1,500 units of mixed-use housing, a new transportation plan, and a linkage between the special features of the university and the community, create commercial enterprises, a state-of-the-art urban center, and a little message back to the legislature, urban center. I won't mention that. Or the new elementary school that will serve downtown that will be a wonderful reflection of the unique educational environment of Portland. I also could talk at length about our innovative research programs, our outstanding graduate and professional schools, our regional strategies that bring us into new and productive working relationships with public schools, community colleges, businesses. I could go on at great length about all of these, but they're all driven by the same core expectation and value, that knowledge has consequences, that knowledge can serve the city. City here meaning all of us. It is the Latin word that refers to community. These aspects of PSU are infused with those values and as a result have a special liveliness and commitment to them. In his recent book, Is There a Public for Public Schools, David Matthews suggests that school reform should be actually recast as community building and proposes we derive the mission of education from the purposes and life of the community. And although he's talking about K through 12, he is describing what we are doing at Portland State. If we concentrate on the community and its concerns, if we actively engage in the kind of transformative learning I've described to you, that we must all experience in order to respond constructively to our rapidly changing world, then we begin to build that wonderful web of trust and mutual respect that the very nature of community requires. And that's the goal of Portland State. And I'm proud to say that now our work is being recognized because all of us long for it, and we're all looking for ways to achieve it. In 1994, we received a national award in management achievement from the National Association of College and University Business Officers for our innovative way of restructuring how we operate the campus. It was a somewhat necessary innovation because of Measure 5, but we saved about $3.5 million in administrative costs, and we're able to apply some of that to investing in academic excellence. In the same year, we received recognition from KPMG Pete Marwick, who reviewed our administrative and organizational designs and concluded that PSU is a national model for the urban university. A year later, we got the first National Leadership Award from the American Association for Higher Ed for our ability to begin to improve student success in a period of budgetary stress and regional and national confusion. In August of 1996, our curricular reforms and the efforts to link our programs to the community were recognized by a 4-year $1 million grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and charter membership in the Kellogg Network for Institutional Transformation, lovingly called KNIT by its friends. In September '96, PSU was selected as the headquarters for a national clearinghouse for service learning called the Invisible College, which provides a means for educators to exchange ideas and experiences that help them reshape their concept of their own role as faculty in promoting the kind of learning I've been talking about. A month later, you notice things are picking up here. In October '96, PSU became one of the first 3 institutions to receive a Pew Leadership Award for undergraduate education in recognition of the remarkable success of our curricular reform. In October of that same year, '96, we received a Community First Leadership Award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for our contributions to national training programs for HUD. In March '97, I may have missed something in between, but I might have been in the bathroom at the time, PSU received another large Pew Award. That comes from Flanders and Swan, for those of you who are not aficionados of funny things. That someone is, thank goodness. Otherwise you'd think I was saying something inappropriate. PSU received another large Pew Award to collaborate with 3 other urban universities to enhance the first-year experience of undergraduates. Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis, IUPUI, University of Houston, and Temple. Just a couple of days ago, we received word from Elizabeth Furz's office in Washington that we've received a Title III grant, which focuses on the development of collaborative efforts among institutions to promote access to the educational systems in the metro area for all of our citizens. By the time I get back to the office, we could have another one. I'm waiting. All of these awards matter deeply to us because they show the value of our work in a larger national context, and they should be a source of pride to all of you, who should know that our experiences not only benefit the citizens of this region, but the citizens of the nation, and through many exchanges we've begun internationally, with all people who live in metropolitan areas. But the real rewards of embracing change can be seen in the quiet stories of people whose lives are different because of the education they've received. The lives of people who have hope, who otherwise would not have believed in themselves. The opportunities that education opens up. And I've spoken about the need for change in higher ed and some of the ways that this institution is leading the way, but I want to say a word about maintaining the momentum. This is your university. It's time to step forward and be counted. Just a couple of weeks ago at my own dining room table, I heard a story that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't realize at the time I was getting pneumonia. I thought it was the story. But a PSU graduate who is a very strong community advocate attended a lecture that was being delivered by Julian Bond. The room was filled with people who are dedicating their lives to one good cause or another. During the question and answer period, a young student raised his hand. He'd wandered into this group of seasoned advocates, and he said he wanted to work on behalf of education. And he wanted to know who he should talk to in order to get involved. And Julian Bond, naturally, from the podium said, "We're in a room full of activists. Please raise your hand if you're working on behalf of public education." Not one person raised a hand. Now, surely we can do better than that. This was not advertised as a speech to be delivered to people who are not working in higher education. It was for all people concerned about community. You've heard the reasons why we have to continue to honor our commitment to providing education for all our citizens. It's all around you, and you yourselves are living that evidence every day. We must not abandon our public higher education system now when we need it the most of all. It's time to invest in education because we want to invest in our communities, and we want to invest in our towns, in our streets and neighborhoods, and our own children's future. On Monday, I will be carrying the same message to members of the Ways and Means Education Subcommittee in Salem, and many of you have carried that message before me. Now, as I prepare to take on new responsibilities, the opposite part of the nation, I seem to be unable to be ever in the middle of anything. I want to thank you, the people of this city, this region, this state, for what truly has been not only a busy time, but the most gratifying professional experience of my entire career. Portland State is the product of all the people who plan, develop, and participate in its activities, and my association with this extraordinary place has changed my life. It has transformed me because I have learned in the way I described to you, and I will always be grateful for the time I've spent here. Portland State is your institution. I urge you to be proud of it, to nurture it, to help it stay the course for the new millennium. Portland State and this region will remain with me in many ways, but it's truly your university and your strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramaley. There has been substantial learning in this community during your tenure here, and I personally have learned from you to laugh loudly in public places as often as possible. What I'm curious about, Dr. Ramaley, is what you have learned during your time here and what you will be taking with you from Portland to Vermont.
I knew you were a man of taste and discrimination, Greg. What I will be learning is that every single person has something to say that all of us need to hear. That if we have the kind of open, trusting exchanges that I think we all long for, we will all be part of this community. And the role of higher education, the role of a college or a university, is to create the environment in which that can happen. Because we are the place within society where learning is honored, where scholarship occurs, and where ideas really matter. And so that is what I have learned in a way that I have never experienced before. The generosity of spirit that comes from open and honest conversation is a remarkable strength that you have here that I hope to see elsewhere.
Hello, Barbara Clark, City Club member. I'm interested to know what advice you would give to your successor.
Beware. The issues that I think must be on the mind of a successor are that what I've been talking about today and what my colleagues have been doing at Portland State frightens other people. It frightens them because it is so engaging and because it is so real and because knowledge suddenly has such deep consequences and ideas suddenly make a difference. And it creates a kind of envy and stress and concern that will eventually pass, but my advice to my successor is trust this community, believe in its goodwill, draw upon it for strength, and ask for its support.
Dick Lewis, City Club member. I was very pleased that the introduction highlighted your background in music. It prompted me to an arts and humanities question, actually a couple of them. First, at a time when these areas of interest, the arts and humanities, are subject to cutbacks and reduction throughout the educational system, I think it's important to have some sense of what value that has in a person's life. And you didn't go on to a career as a singer. You became a scientist and an administrator. But I would imagine it's an important part of all of that. And so I'd be interested in hearing you say something about how that musical training and that part of your life has been important in your work. And the other is perhaps to ask you for some comments on maybe the role of higher education in the cultural life of the state generally.
I will never forget the newspaper review after I was a soloist at an event in the city. I was told it would be wise to keep my day job. You can tell it stung. I still remember it. The role that the arts in general, music in particular, because I have an ear for rhythm. I think maybe I hear the music of the spheres sometimes, but I understand that the Greeks abandoned that at some point in their philosophy. But the importance of the arts in human expression, in the way of being able to demonstrate something about what we care about deeply that we have no other way to express, continues to be part of my life. Music, poetry, literature, the fine arts of all sorts. And I would wish for everyone that opportunity. Many people who don't catch the magic of it have to rely on other material. For instance, our former Dean of Fine and Performing Arts used to send me little articles on how experiencing the arts improved one's mathematical skills, so that it became clear that many of these things draw on the same aspects of human capability and speak to some of the same aspects of the human spirit. As far as thinking of them as auxiliary or in some way that which can be abandoned just as we might abandon a particular sports program, it's important for everyone to understand that they're central to human life. And so at Portland State, for example, in the curriculum that we've designed, we have had faculty from the arts participating from the freshman year through to the senior year in our general education, which is called University Studies, so that in every topic we look at the artistic expression of a particular time, a particular set of ideas, a way in which these ideas spread across a culture and find expression in different ways, because it's part of the repertoire that we want all of our graduates to have. Now that requires that we protect the fine and performing arts, so we have some faculty to participate, and we've been doing that. The other side of your question, which is how does a university sustain and support the arts, comes from our particular approach to a community-based institution, engaged institution. We've done everything from encouraging our business students to help small arts organizations manage their resources and their publicity and their work with volunteers, through to helping to promote original composition and the first opportunity for exposure to particular artistic creations. We think of it as part of what we do, to build the capacity in the community to sustain a wide collection of artistic activities and to make them stronger because they become part of our desire as an institution to have an environment in which our students can achieve the kind of transformative learning I described. So it's central to everything we do.
Dan Goldie, City Club member. Maybe this is an unfair question given the fact that you're going to be appearing before the Ways and Means Committee next week, or in a few days. But nevertheless, the governor has pointed out that at a time of unprecedented growth and prosperity in the state, we are disinvesting in our higher education system. Like many other Western states, Oregon is characterized by a big metropolitan area, big metropolitan area, and a big rural area around it. Our legislative leadership in the state almost all comes from the rural area. So my question is this: practically and realistically, what hope for an urban university in a state whose revenues and investment is controlled essentially by the representatives of the rural areas?
My response to that is based on actual experience, and that is that some of our strongest supporters for higher ed, but also for Portland State, do not live in the metropolitan area. In fact, one of my concerns has been that until the last year or so, we had trouble getting support from our own folks because we are so diverse and the interests of different counties and communities are so distinctive that to develop a caucus that would create that kind of strength has been a real challenge and continues to be. So many of the things that Portland State has accomplished since 1990 have come as a result of the strong belief of legislators representing other parts of the state that the fate or future of their own constituents depended on the effective connections between all parts of the state and the metropolitan area, which is a major economic engine and transfer mechanism for the state as a whole. I see a growing appreciation for how we affect each other. It's one of the things I hope will come out of the kind of education I described, where we become aware that we are connected in all sorts of ways to other people that we think are different from us and working in isolation from us. And I've seen in such things as the light rail and the concept of a statewide approach to transportation a real appreciation for how the parts fit together. So I believe we not only have hope, but I have real examples to give of the expression of that confidence and investment that we have seen before. So stay tuned. I believe that the urban area and Portland State as the urban university, working with its sister institutions, but also with other parts of the state, community college and public school system, will be seen as part of a much larger investment strategy. What's new is the concept of investment, that the parts do fit together, that if you do something in one part of the state, it has repercussions or ripples in other parts of the state. Now, I would encourage us to continue to realize that we are, in a very large measure, influencing each other's lives in ways that we often ignore.
Thank you. I'm Jeannie Dodson-Edgar, City Club member. Just like a wave sculpts the beach, a wave also stirs up a lot of sand. Thank you for stirring up a lot of sand.
You're welcome.
The question is indirectly related and directly related to higher ed. I have sensed in the Portland area and in Oregon that there isn't a great respect and regard for education. There's so much emphasis on other aspects of life, not that that's right or wrong. Yet I'm one who loves education. What, as City Club members who love to work on problems, can we do to elevate the fact that being smart is okay?
You're raising a very deep cultural issue that has puzzled me ever since I moved to Oregon in 1990. Somehow excellence is embarrassing in Oregon. And if you are truly very, 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 very good at whatever you do, whether it's an intellectual enterprise or or an artistic expression, that people tend to have some difficulty with that. I think it's the classic image of the higher nail gets pounded down. What can you do as City Club members? Well, what you can do is, first of all, get past that and talk about what you care about. If you love education and you love learning, get involved yourself with your own local elementary, middle, or high school, or with a community college, or with Portland State, or with some other institution you care deeply about, wherever it is located. Put yourself on the line and tell other people what you did. Stephen Carter's definition of integrity involves moral discernment. I didn't go into it all, but moral discernment followed by acting on your understanding, followed by being willing to tell other people why you did what you did. And I think we have a lot of folks, including many in this room, I'm sure, who have acted on their convictions, but they don't then talk about it. And so they don't create a climate in which other people acting on their ideas feel that they are doing something valued by the community. Talk about it.
Scott Burns, City Club member. Judith, thank you very much for 7 years of commitment to Portland State, the university, the students, the faculty, the staff, and the community of Portland. My question to you is, what are you going to miss about Portland?
Well, I'll miss you, dirtball. For those who are not in the room or who don't know who just spoke, is one of our most valued faculty in the geology department who has an office deep in the basement, who sends me email that says, "From dirtball in the basement." And that is what I will miss. I will miss the remarkable spirit of our people. I love our faculty and staff and students. They're fun, they're insouciant, they say things that you're not supposed to say to presidents. They're inspiring. They make me laugh. I'll miss you. I'll miss you very much.
Jim Westwood, City Club member. I'm proud to be a graduate of Portland State University, and seated at a couple of tables around me here are perhaps some future students at Portland State who are probably in their elementary to secondary school phase right now. And I wonder if you could tell us a little about how you think the urban university can cross-fertilize and mingle with the elementary and secondary education system of the city that it serves.
There's several different ways. I sort of file it in my memory as K through 16 issues. The kind of things I've been talking about that we're doing at Portland State are also happening in the public school system. The idea that you can learn while serving your community at the same time. The idea that you learn when you care about what you're doing, when you can see the results of it right in front of you, when it means something to you personally. Those are the same things that we're trying to do in higher education at Portland State. So part of what we're doing is our faculty are interacting with your teachers. Our students are interacting with folks like you to do projects together that make Portland a better place. Environmentally, make it a better place in being more welcoming to people and helping folks who don't have family and other support systems. We are doing many things that will prepare you for going to a college that behaves like Portland State does. There are similar exciting things going on at community colleges. A lot of you who go on to college will start in a community college first. We have wonderful working partnerships with the community colleges that also serve this area. And we're doing many things together to create an educational environment for the whole region that you can enjoy at any time in your life, that you can enjoy, in fact, in ways that are much more related to your own interests and not so much to what we would prescribe for you, which is what the old system was like. So we're changing the educational environment. And I don't know which schools you come from, and so I don't know how it's showing up in your own daily experience, but you're getting a very different kind of education already than I got, or a lot of other people in this room got, and it's partly because of the partnerships that have grown between Portland State and your school.
Joella Berlin Club member. Thank you again, Judith, for your wonderful contributions to our community. As I understand it, you're a defender of the word Portland in the name of this university. and you believe it carries with it a lot of strength, and you would not advocate for some change in that designation. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to carry the name Portland in that university?
Well, there's all the cost of the stationery, and and I've got all these little buttons that I wouldn't know what to do with. More seriously, however, for me, the word Portland does not refer to the city of Portland. It refers to the Portland metropolitan area, which has a very distinctive character. And Portland State, because it's so community engaged, takes on a particular flavor, particular way of looking at the world because we are here. And so although we are not just regional, we are not confined to the urban growth boundary, wherever you choose to put it, nonetheless, we start here. We draw our strength here. We're inspired here. And so that's why I like the word Portland. I don't want to call us something else because I do believe that that identity is extremely important to what makes Portland State such a distinctive place.
Madam President, Steve Shell, member. I wonder if you could reflect a little bit about the role of the citizenry in understanding community and, in essence, social capital. We have a rather unique system in Oregon because of our initiative and referendum, and those processes show right now a disconnect between what the basic needs of our community appear to be, at least to those of us who follow those things, and private investment or private concerns. Public concerns seem to take less and less significance as we head toward the 21st century. What do we need to do, in your opinion, to address the consequences of, and I mean the social consequences, not the political consequences necessary, but the social consequences of things like ballot measure 5 and ballot measure 47 and ballot measure 38 and so on. These very profound effects that change the way we operate in this state as opposed to other places.
Well, there are a lot of states with a referendum process, but I don't think there are any that I'm aware of that have lost the original intent so thoroughly as we have. The package called the Oregon Trio of Referendum Initiative and Recall was meant to ensure that the public felt engaged and connected to the decisions being made on their behalf by their elected leaders. The question is profound, and it would take an entire additional City Club talk even to begin to try to respond properly to it. But let me just say that there are several things that we can do. The first thing we can do is recognize that individual initiative or referral processes have to be connected, at least in the voters' pamphlet, if not elsewhere, to the rest of the state. I found myself trying to figure out how to vote on particular items, unable to trace it to other things I cared about. The reason we got Measure 5 was that people didn't understand the consequences beyond the scope of the voters' pamphlet. How many people said to me sheepishly a year or two later, I voted for Measure 5 because I was worried about paying my property taxes. I didn't know it would cause a 20% reduction in the state general fund support for Portland State. I care about higher ed. What do I do now? Well, my response was, as measured as I could make it, because I wanted to say, why didn't you think of that in the first place? And then I realized, how could they? It's invisible. We don't make those connections. And so the first thing we can do is require what I would call full disclosure. Figure out how to put into the information that voters have in their hands, not only the dollars that go with it, which are always somehow hardly anything, but also the overall consequences. Help them understand. Most people don't even know who pays for the water that comes out of their tap or who pays for the road they drive on. And so a lot of people couldn't figure out why voting for Measure 5 did anything to a state function once they found out a state function. That's step one. Step two is to figure out a way to make it necessary for this set of procedures to be used more thoughtfully by spreading out the population that has to concur with a particular measure before it ends up on the ballot. And that the City Club itself has talked a great deal about this and offered some very constructive suggestions we need to take seriously. The third thing is to keep pushing on the kind of educational system I just described to you. It will be impossible for a Portland State graduate who has really seriously been engaged with the kind of education I described to you to vote in a vacuum. They will wonder what the connections are. They'll look for them. They'll care. They will insist that that be discussed. And we can certainly model it. We've been having opportunities since 1991 to do the pros and cons of the different measures before the electorate, which is an educational function that we are well in a position to serve, so that people can think this through and talk it through. But we need more conversation in our communities. We need to think through these things and stop using them as symbols for things we want to beat other people up about. So there. I said it, I'm glad.
So am I.
Hi.
Don Sterling, member of the City Club. What comments would you care to make about the structure of the Oregon State system of higher education?
Next question. Well, let me try to take that on seriously. I actually believe in the value of a real system. We don't have a real system in this state, but we could. A real system of higher education, which we have the capacity to achieve here, would have several, in this case 7, very distinctive institutions with, at the graduate professional level and within some aspects of their graduate mix, very specialized character. And they would, through various incentives and collaborative models, interact with each other in such a way that whatever issues emerged in the communities of our state, we could direct our energy and support toward a university system, community, joint venture that would address that issue. A real system can work that way. It requires a different way of budgeting. It requires different things that we measure for our accountability. It requires holding presidents to different standards of conduct and performance. It involves building different pathways for interaction. But this state is within a short distance of creating a genuine system if it chose to. What we've done instead is we've flown apart at the seams, and we now have essentially a free market environment in which each institution is attempting to protect its own capacities, serve in the best way it knows how its constituencies, and if we happen to collaborate and cooperate on behalf of the state, that's a blessing. Portland State tries to do that. Some of the other institutions try to do it, but we do it, if I may say, without benefit of clergy.
I'm Gus Mattersdorf, a member of the City Club, and on the faculty of an institution of higher education, not yours, but one nearby.
I've heard of it.
The dilemma I have is that my impulse is to support every thought that helps institutions of higher education. And yet a friend of mine said to me not terribly long ago that the best way to support universities and colleges is to give maximum support to the grade schools. If you support the grade schools, then you are, by definition, supporting the middle schools, and if you support the middle schools, you support the high schools, and it will bubble up. That it is less effective to support it only at the top level. This thought has created a dilemma in my mind which I've never been able to resolve, and here's my last chance to ask you.
May I help you? The problem with a thought like that is the grain of truth in it is that education needs to be a continuum, and if students moving through that continuum do not have the preparation they need, they won't get as much as they could out of whatever you invest in the rest of the system. That's the grain of truth, and it's very important. However, like everything else, I believe in the balanced life. I don't necessarily live it, but I believe in it. And I believe that you should no more only invest in grade schools than you should only invest in higher ed. What we need to understand is we need a balanced perspective and an investment strategy that supports the entire system, that encourages it to work as a system, sort of reflecting on Don's question earlier, and that we find a way to recognize that these parts do connect to each other. One of the great dilemmas I had when Measure 15 was on the ballot was, I believe in investing in kids. I know that the early capacities for reading, the early sense of confidence that comes in oneself are pretty much established by third grade. And so I know that we have to support elementary schools and we have to support middle and high schools, but not to the point of dismantling our social services, our communities and their safety, and access to higher ed, which in turn helps create the environment in which the other investments can be successful because of our interactions with the other organizations, because of the way we prepare people to work in those organizations, and because of the opportunities we offer students and their parents and interested folks in the community to interact well together to support those particular schools. And so my response to your friend's comment is, it doesn't bubble up, but you must recognize that this is an entire system. Anytime you touch any part of it, like a web, like a spider's web, if you tweak one part of it, the entire web begins to change.